Here's something most people over 60 never hear from their doctor. There is one exercise, just one, that researchers are now calling the single most powerful predictor of whether you'll still be walking independently at 75, 80, even 85. Not running, not lifting heavy weights, not hours at the gym. One specific movement, done correctly, done consistently. And here's the thing, most people skip it entirely, not because it's hard, but because nobody ever told them how important it actually is. If you click this video, I want you to stay right here, because what I'm going to share with you today could genuinely change the next 10 years of your life. Let's talk about it. I want you to think about someone for a second. Her name is Carol. She's 68 years old, lives in a small town in Ohio. 2 grandchildren she absolutely adores. A garden she's been tending for 30 years. 3 years ago, Carol started noticing something. Little things at first. The stairs felt harder than they used to. Getting up from the floor after playing with the grandkids took a little longer. A walk through the grocery store left her knees aching by the time she got to the car. She thought, that's just age. That's just how it goes. So she slowed down. She sat more. She stopped taking those long Sunday afternoon walks she used to love. And the less she walked, the harder it got to walk. Sound familiar? Here's what Carol didn't know, and what most people her age don't know, is that what was happening to her wasn't inevitable. It was preventable. And more importantly, even after it had started, it was reversible. Because what Carol was experiencing wasn't just aging, it was muscle loss, specifically the gradual loss of one muscle group that most people never think about. A group so critical to walking, to balance, to independence, that when it weakens, everything else starts to fall apart. And when you strengthen it, everything starts to come back together. I'll tell you exactly what that muscle group is in just a moment. But first, I need to share something that might surprise you. Here's something that doesn't get talked about nearly enough. After the age of 50, most adults lose somewhere between 1 and 2% of their muscle mass every single year. It's a natural process called sarcopenia, and the vast majority of people have never even heard that word. Let that sink in for a second. 1 to 2%. Every year, without even noticing it. By the time you're 70, you could have lost 20 to 40% of the muscle strength you had in your prime. Not because you're unhealthy, not because something went wrong, simply because nobody told you what to do about it. And here's the cruel part. The muscles that go first, the ones that decline the fastest, are the exact muscles responsible for your ability to walk steadily, stand up from a chair, climb stairs, and keep your balance when the ground isn't perfectly flat. The quadriceps, the glutes, the hip stabilizers, these are the engines of human movement. And for most people over 60, they're running on half power. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Because researchers have studied what separates people who stay mobile and independent into their 80 seconds from those who don't. And they found one thing, one physical marker, that was more predictive than almost anything else. It wasn't cardiovascular fitness. It wasn't flexibility. It wasn't even bone density. It was lower body strength, specifically the strength and stability of the legs and hips. And the most effective single exercise for building and maintaining that strength? We'll get there, I promise. But first, I want to tell you something that might change the way you think about aging altogether. Here's a truth that the healthiest, most active seniors understand, and that most people never figure out until it's too late. The body does not have to decline the way most people assume it will. I'm not talking about magic. I'm not talking about turning back the clock completely. I'm talking about something that science has confirmed again and again. The human body, at 60, at 70, at 80, still responds to movement, still adapts, still builds strength. There's a well-known principle in exercise science called the SAID principle, specific adaptation to imposed demands. What it means is simple. The body adapts to whatever you ask of it. Ask it to sit still, and it gets weaker. Ask it to move, and it gets stronger. There was a landmark study published in the Journal of Aging and Physical Activity that found older adults who began a targeted lower body strengthening program, even starting in their mid-70s, showed significant improvements in walking speed, balance, and functional independence within just 12 weeks. 12 weeks. 3 months of consistent, focused effort. That's it. Now think about what Carol's life looked like before she knew this. Slowing down because she thought decline was inevitable. Making herself smaller. Doing less. But here's the rest of Carol's story. About a year after things got really hard, her daughter found some information about a simple daily exercise routine focused on one key movement. Carol started doing it. Slowly at first. Carefully. Within 6 weeks, her neighbor asked if she'd been doing something different because she looked taller somehow, more upright, more confident. Within 4 months, she was back in her garden, not just sitting on a stool beside the beds, but actually kneeling, standing, moving through it the way she always had. And her grandkids? She got back on the floor with them again. That's not a miracle. That's not luck. That's what the right exercise, done consistently, can do for a body that's still very much alive and capable of change. Now, are you ready to hear what that exercise is? The exercise is the squat. Specifically, and this is important, a modified, controlled, senior-appropriate squat. Now, before you close this video thinking, that's not for me, stay with me. Because the squat you're thinking of is probably not the squat I'm talking about. I'm not talking about loading a barbell on your shoulders in a gym. I'm not talking about anything that requires special equipment or a certain level of fitness you may not have right now. I'm talking about a movement your body was literally designed to perform. A movement you do dozens of times a day without even realizing it. Every time you sit down in a chair, stand up from the toilet, lower yourself into a car seat, or get out of bed. The difference is this: doing it intentionally, with control, with purpose, and with your attention on the specific muscles you're trying to strengthen. Here's why the squat is so powerful. In one single movement, it activates your quadriceps, the large muscles across the front of your thighs, your glutes, the muscles of your buttocks that power every step you take, your hamstrings, the muscles running down the back of your thighs, your calves, your core, and critically, your stabilizing muscles around the hips and knees. No other single exercise trains all of these together. Not walking, not cycling, not leg extensions on a machine. The squat is what exercise scientists call a compound movement. It doesn't just build one muscle, it builds the entire chain of muscles responsible for human locomotion. But here's where things get really interesting. Because the squat doesn't just build strength, it also trains something that most seniors and most fitness programs completely overlook: neuromuscular coordination. That's the connection between your brain and your muscles. The signals that tell your legs how to respond when the ground shifts slightly. The reflexes that catch you when you stumble. The automatic adjustments your body makes without you even thinking about it. Balance, stability, fall prevention. Did you know that falls are the leading cause of injury-related death among adults over 65 in the United States? Over 36 million falls are reported every year, and the single greatest predictor of fall risk is weak leg and hip muscles combined with poor neuromuscular coordination. In other words, exactly what a properly performed squat addresses. Now let me walk you through the modified version I recommend for people over 60. This is called the chair squat, and it is one of the safest and most effective exercises you can do, regardless of your current fitness level. Here's what you need: a sturdy chair. That's it. Step 1. Set up. Stand directly in front of the chair, facing away from it. Your feet should be about shoulder width apart. Toes pointed slightly outward, maybe 10 to 15 degrees. The chair is there as your safety net and your depth guide. Step 2. The descent. Take a slow, deep breath, then begin to hinge slightly at your hips, as if you're about to sit down, while simultaneously bending your knees. Here's the key: slow and controlled. Count 3 full seconds on the way down. Resist the gravity. Feel your muscles working. Keep your chest up. Keep your back straight, not rigid, just natural. And keep your knees tracking over your toes. Don't let them collapse inward. Step 3. The bottom position. Lower yourself until you very lightly touch the chair. You're not sitting down hard, you're barely grazing it. Or if needed when you're first starting out, you can fully sit down. That's completely fine. Meet yourself where you are. Pause for 1 second at the bottom. Step 4. The rise. Now push through your heels and rise back to standing. This is where your glutes and quads are doing the heavy lifting. Feel them working. Squeeze your glutes lightly at the top. 2 seconds on the way up. That's 1 rep. How many? Start with just 5. That's it. 5 controlled, focused, intentional repetitions. Once a day. That might sound almost insultingly simple, but I want to tell you something about simplicity. The people who make the most lasting change, the ones who are still active and independent at 80, are almost never the ones who did the most extreme program. They're the ones who did something small, every single day, for years. 5 today becomes 10 in 2 weeks. 10 becomes 15 in a month. And 15 intentional, powerful squats a day, done every day, represents one of the most meaningful investments you can make in your future mobility. Most people who learn this don't do it because they don't start. Don't be most people. Here's something I'm genuinely curious about. Before you heard this today, did you already know how important squatting is for long-term mobility? Drop a comment below and tell me, have you ever had a doctor, physical therapist, or trainer recommend this to you? I'd love to know, because I think you might be surprised how many people were never told. And while you're thinking about that, let me tell you about the one mistake that almost everyone makes when they start this exercise. It's a mistake that doesn't just reduce the results, it can actually increase your risk of knee pain. Here's the mistake: going too fast. It sounds almost laughably simple, doesn't it? But it's not. Because the speed at which you perform a squat completely changes which muscles are doing the work. When you drop down quickly, when you just fall into the chair instead of lowering yourself with control, you're relying on momentum and joint compression instead of muscular effort. The muscles barely engage, and the knees take the impact. That's where people get pain. That's where people get frustrated and say, "Squats hurt my knees." Squats done wrong hurt knees. Squats done right, slowly, with control, with the weight in your heels, with your knees tracking properly, build the muscles that protect those knees. Think of it this way. Imagine two people walking down a steep hill. The first person just walks fast and loose, letting gravity take them. Their knees are taking a pounding with every step. They'll be limping by the time they reach the bottom. The second person slows down, leans back slightly, controls each step. Their muscles, not their joints, are doing the work. Same hill, completely different outcome. That's the difference between a careless squat and a controlled squat. 3 seconds down, 1 second pause, 2 seconds up. That rhythm isn't arbitrary. It's the rhythm of a movement that builds muscle, protects joints, and trains your brain and body to work together. And here's something even most fitness instructors don't emphasize. It's that slow, controlled descent where most of the muscle building actually happens. That's called eccentric loading, and research consistently shows it's among the most effective methods of building leg strength in older adults. Pretty wild, right? But wait, there's one more thing I want to share with you. Because the squat on its own is powerful, but when you combine it with this one simple addition, the results become remarkable. Here's what I mean. Balance and strength are related, but they're not the same thing. You can have reasonably strong legs and still have poor balance. And poor balance is one of the biggest predictors of falls, limited mobility, and loss of independence. The good news? Balance, just like strength, is trainable at any age. And there's one incredibly simple addition to your daily routine that, combined with your squats, creates what physical therapists often call a mobility multiplier. It's called a single leg stand. Here's how it works. Stand behind a sturdy chair, not holding it, just using it as a safety backup. Lift one foot just slightly off the ground. Hold that position for 10 seconds. Then switch feet. That's it. When you first try this, you might be surprised how challenging it is. That's okay. That's your body telling you exactly where the work needs to happen. Over time, over weeks and months of consistent practice, your body builds the neuromuscular pathways that give you stability on uneven terrain, on slippery floors, on stairs without handrails, on hiking trails with grandkids. The people who stay active and independent into their 80 seconds and 90 seconds in this country, they almost universally have one thing in common. They never stopped challenging their balance. They never stopped asking their bodies to adapt. The healthiest, most capable seniors I've seen aren't always the ones who were athletes in their youth. They're the ones who kept moving, kept challenging themselves, kept investing in their bodies, even when it was just 5 minutes a day. That could be you. In fact, if you're still watching this right now, I'd argue that the very fact you're here, learning, caring about this, already puts you ahead of most people. Let me bring this back around to something bigger for a moment. Because this video was never really about squats. It was about Carol's garden. It was about getting on the floor with your grandchildren. It was about walking through the airport under your own power. About getting in and out of the car without that little wince of pain. About taking a long walk on a beautiful fall morning because you can. It was about independence. Because here's the truth about independence in your later years. It doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't just happen to some people and not others based on luck. In the vast majority of cases, it happens because someone, at some point, decided to do something about it. They decided that the next 10 years were worth investing in. They decided that 5 minutes a day was worth it. They decided that they weren't going to accept This is just how it is, as the final answer. You can make that decision right now, today. Not next Monday, not after the holidays, not when you feel ready. Today, when this video ends, you can stand up from wherever you're sitting and do 5 chair squats. 5. That's your investment in the next 10 years.